Prayer, for some it's a quiet whisper, for others a desperate cry. But beyond tradition and habit, prayer carries a power many don't fully see, power that touches the unseen, the emotional, the spiritual, and the very real moments of daily life. Imagine prayer not as a ritual, but as a divine conversation, a connection that reshapes the course of an ordinary day. From ancient temples to hidden bedside moments, prayer bridges earth and heaven. It comforts those walking through valleys of fear. It strengthens those climbing mountains of uncertainty. And even when answers don't come in the way we expect, something shifts in the atmosphere of the heart. In this journey, we'll unfold 10 cinematic segments that reveal how prayer brings strength, guidance, healing, peace, and breakthrough into daily living. We'll explore stories that feel like scenes from a film, where silence becomes sacred, tears become testimony, and hope rises in the most unexpected places. This isn't just about religion. It's about relationship. It's about moments where humanity reaches for the divine and finds that heaven was closer than we thought. Stay with me as we step into a world where prayer is not background noise. It's the soundtrack of transformation. Let's begin. The house is quiet. Morning light spills through the curtains. A woman sits at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug, her Bible opened but unread. Her thoughts are loud: bills, deadlines, family, uncertainty. For a moment, she closes her eyes and whispers a two-word prayer. Help me. There are no fireworks, no thunderous voice from the sky, just stillness. Yet something changes. The knot in her chest loosens. Her shoulders relax. In that small sacred pause, peace enters like a soft breeze. Prayer doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's a silent whisper before the day begins, a pause before the storm of responsibilities hits. It's the breath you take before stepping into traffic, into meetings, into motherhood, into marriage, into pain. For many, the morning prayer isn't poetic. It's raw, simple, and real. It acknowledges our limits and invites God into the day before chaos competes for attention. And often, it is in those whispers that we first feel the quiet reassurance. You are not alone. Today you are not walking unarmed. The woman opens her eyes. The bills haven't vanished. The stresses haven't dissolved. But her spirit is steadier. Something unseen has entered the room. That is the quiet power of morning prayer, the unseen armor before the battle begins. The sun has set, and the world outside grows still. A man lies in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every what-if his mind can conjure. Fear crawls through the cracks of silence. What if he loses his job? What if his health declines? What if the phone rings with bad news? In the darkness, fear loves to shout. But tonight, instead of surrendering to it, he does something different. He folds his hands awkwardly. He hasn't prayed in years. His voice is unsteady. God, I don't even know what to say. But I'm scared. The moment feels small, almost embarrassing, but something happens. Like a heavy door creaking open, peace inches in. Fear doesn't vanish, but its grip loosens. The man's breathing slows. The shadows in the room feel less like threats and more like quiet witnesses to his surrender. Prayer doesn't always chase fear away instantly. Sometimes it simply lights a candle in the dark rather than banishing the night entirely. But a single flame can make fear stumble. Many of the most powerful prayers are born out of trembling. In moments when control slips through human fingers, prayer becomes the outstretched hand reaching for something stronger than fear. Fear may knock often, but prayer knows how to answer. Picture a hospital room bathed in pale light. Machines beep softly. A mother sits beside her child, fingers tracing the edge of a thin blanket. The doctors have done all they can. She leans forward, eyes closed, and whispers a prayer through tears, not demanding a miracle but begging for mercy. That night, nurses notice improvement, small but undeniable. Days later, color returns to the child's face. The road is long, but something shifted when prayer entered the room. Around the world, healing often begins in unseen ways. Some recover physically. Others find emotional healing after heartbreak or depression. Sometimes the healing isn't in the body at all. It's in the soul. In the release of anger, in the courage to forgive, in the strength to face another day. There was a soldier who prayed not to wake up from his nightmares. Instead, he woke up one morning realizing the nightmares had loosened their grip. There was a widow who prayed for strength to stand and found herself comforting others at the funeral she once feared to attend. Not every prayer heals the way we hope, but every sincere prayer invites divine presence into the places we hurt, and where God's presence enters, transformation begins, even if slowly, quietly, or differently than expected. Imagine a young man standing at a crossroads, 2 job offers, 2 futures, 2 very different roads. His friends tell him to choose quickly. His parents tell him to be practical, but his heart is torn in 2 directions. That night, he walks outside under a sky scattered with stars. He sits on a bench and whispers, "God, show me where to go. I don't want to just choose, I want to follow." The answer doesn't arrive like a voice from heaven. Instead, it arrives through a deep sense of peace about one path and a gentle restlessness about the other. The next morning he knows. Not because logic shouted, but because prayer quieted the noise long enough for direction to surface. Prayer doesn't always give us a map. Sometimes it gives us a compass. It doesn't erase difficult decisions, but it aligns the heart with wisdom, conviction, and timing beyond our own understanding. Some hear guidance in Scripture, some through a conversation that feels perfectly timed, some through doors that close before they can be walked through. When prayer is part of the journey, even uncertainty becomes sacred ground. The world teaches us to move fast. Prayer reminds us to move right. Sirens, shattered glass, the world spinning in slow motion. A car accident in the rain. A man trapped behind the wheel, dazed, bleeding, surrounded by twisted metal. In the chaos, his lips move without thinking. God, help me. He doesn't think of theology. He doesn't recall polished words. In crisis, prayer erupts from instinct. And somehow, amid the smoke and confusion, there is a presence, still steady, like a hand on his shoulder. First responders arrive. He is rescued. The car is totaled, but his life is not. Later, he will say he felt something in the moment between impact and rescue, like someone was with him in the wreckage. In crisis, prayer is less about perfection and more about survival. It's not recited, it's released. It's the soul crying out when words aren't enough. There are people who prayed in earthquakes, in war zones, in burning buildings, in broken marriages, in collapsing finances. And even when outcomes were not what they prayed for, they often testify that strength came in the exact moment they needed it most. Prayer in crisis doesn't always change the event, but it changes the person inside it. Picture a farmer at sunset. His hands are rough, his back aches, but his field glows golden beneath the fading light. He stands quietly, not asking for anything, just breathing thanks. That moment is prayer too. Gratitude is one of the most overlooked forms of prayer, not the polite thank you said out of habit, but the deep recognition of blessings hiding in ordinary places, a child's laughter, a repaired friendship, a breath that didn't cost a dime. There once was a woman who lost nearly everything during a storm. Home gone, memories washed away, but on the first night in a shelter, she held her daughter close and said, "We still have life. We still have each other. Thank you, God." Her prayer didn't deny the pain. It declared the promise. When gratitude becomes prayer, bitterness loses ground. The heart stops rehearsing what is missing and starts noticing what remains. And in that shift, joy re-enters the room. Gratitude doesn't require perfect days, just open eyes. There is a point in many lives where fighting no longer works. A businessman once sat alone in his office long after closing, staring at the papers that marked his failure. He had prayed for success, for opportunity, for favor. But that night, he prayed a different prayer. Not my will, yours. Surrender isn't waving a white flag of defeat. It's placing the weight of your plans into hands stronger than your own. It's trusting that unanswered prayers aren't always ignored. They're sometimes redirected. There was a couple who prayed for a child for 10 years. The answer never came in the way they expected. But one day they adopted a baby who needed them more than they ever realized. Their tears of longing became tears of purpose. Prayer of surrender doesn't erase desire. It releases control. When people pray this way, they often find peace not because the road is revealed, but because the burden is no longer theirs alone. Sometimes the bravest prayer isn't "God, give me what I want," but "God, lead me where you will." In a small village struck by drought, crops withered and wells dried. One evening, families gathered in the center of town. No microphones, no sermons, just people standing shoulder to shoulder, hands lifted, tears mixing with dust. Their voices rose, not in panic, but in unity. Days later, clouds formed over land that hadn't seen rain in months. Some called it coincidence. Others called it mercy. The villagers simply bowed their heads and whispered thanks. Prayer in community carries a strength individual voices cannot hold alone. When people pray together for healing, justice, comfort, revival, faith multiplies. In hospital waiting rooms, church basements, living rooms, and refugee camps, collective prayer becomes a chorus heaven cannot ignore. Even through screens and distance, communities form prayer chains that wrap around the world. The broken are lifted, the weary strengthened, and those who feel invisible suddenly realize, someone is standing with me. Where two or three gather, something holy stirs. Not all miracles flash like lightning. Some tiptoe into daily life. A man on the verge of quitting his dream suddenly receives a message of encouragement he didn't expect. A mother battling depression wakes up one morning and feels joy for the first time in months. A teenager who felt invisible finds purpose after praying for direction. These are not headlines, but they are miracles. Prayer doesn't always split seas or raise the dead. Sometimes it simply opens the eyes to pathways that were already there, waiting. Sometimes the miracle is that the pain didn't break you, that the storm didn't define you, that the tears didn't drown you. The power of prayer in daily life isn't always in the answer. It's in the nearness of God. It's in knowing that whether mountains move or remain, you are not alone in the climb. As we close this journey, remember, prayer isn't an escape from reality. It's a bridge through it. It's the unseen thread weaving strength into fragile hearts. It's conversation, connection, and sometimes the only breath a soul has left. So pray in the morning, pray in fear, pray in joy and surrender in gratitude. Pray when words fail and when hope flickers. Because prayer doesn't just change things, it changes people. And that is the quiet miracle happening every day.